Have you ever wished you had an operating manual for your own mind? Well, today we're diving into this incredible ancient system of thought that basically claims to be just that. It's a set of really powerful ideas, axioms really, all designed for one big purpose: to completely get beyond suffering and liberate the soul. And this is pretty much ground zero. This quote lays out the core problem that this entire philosophy is trying to solve. And it's not just talking about having a bad day, this is a diagnosis of existence itself. The texts are saying that from the moment we're born to the moment we die, suffering is just baked into the cycle. So if that's the problem, what in the world is the cause? Right, so before we can even think about a solution, we've got to really dig into the problem. This system has a specific name for this merry-go-round of existence we're all on, and understanding it is absolutely central to everything else we're going to talk about. That cycle is called samsara. The texts define it as this endless, repetitive loop of birth, suffering, death, and then rebirth. It's like a wheel that just keeps on turning, and it's driven by forces that most of the time we don't even know are there. So what are those forces? What keeps this big cosmic wheel spinning? Well, according to these axioms, the single root cause, the engine driving all of this, is a really profound and fundamental kind of ignorance. The texts call it avidya, and it's a specific type of spiritual blindness. It's a case of mistaken identity, a fundamental misunderstanding of who or what we really are. So what are we mistaking ourselves for? Well, the texts break down this false self into 5 parts, which they call the 5 aggregates. This is our physical body, our feelings and sensations, our perceptions, our thoughts and mental chatter, and our day-to-day consciousness. We grab onto these things, we cling to them thinking, yep, this is me. But the texts argue that this is the huge mistake, because these 5 things are the very source of our suffering. And that brings us to what is maybe the most critical axiom in this entire system: the radical, fundamental difference between the temporary self we think we are and the eternal soul the texts say we truly are. Getting your head around this distinction, well, that's the key that unlocks this whole path. This is such a powerful metaphor for explaining this idea. The texts talk about us being like an inverted tree, where our real roots are in the heavens, but we're just staring at the reflection of light on the ground below. We are the image of the true soul, the Atman, that's projected onto the aggregates, our false self. And all our pain comes from mistaking that reflection for the actual source of the light. So let's just put them side by side. On one hand, you've got the false self, the anatta or aggregates. It's temporary, it's cobbled together from different parts, and it's always changing and, suffering. But on the other side, you have the true soul, the Atman. It's described as eternal, whole, luminous, and our true, unchanging essence. This whole philosophy is basically saying these aren't just 2 versions of you. One is the illusion, and one is the reality. So what exactly is this Atan? The texts describe it as the unseen seer. It's this pure, radiant consciousness that was never born, was never created, and can never die. It's not something that we have. It's the innermost core of what we are, and it's completely beyond all the change and decay of the world. Okay, so if that's the core idea, then the biggest possible mistake, what the texts bluntly call the Dhamma of fools, is to look at all the temporary, ever-changing stuff, our body, our thoughts, our feelings, and say, this is my soul and it's gonna last forever. The philosophy argues that this is the most profound error a person can make, because it's the very thing that keeps you trapped on the wheel of suffering you're trying to get off of. Okay, so we've got the diagnosis. We're trapped in samsara because we're mistaking our reflection for our true self. Now for the most important part, the solution. The texts don't just point out the problem and leave you hanging, they provide a super detailed practical guide for how to achieve liberation. I love this analogy because it shows just how practical these teachings are meant to be. The Dhamma, the doctrine itself, is described as a raft. It's not something you're supposed to worship or cling to forever. No, it's a tool. It's a vehicle that you build for one very specific purpose: to get you from this shore of suffering, across the choppy waters of samsara, to the further shore of final liberation. And the instruction manual for building and using that raft, well, that's laid out in what the texts call the exalted eightfold path. Each of these steps, from your vision and your resolve all the way to final inner peace, it's all a training program in wisdom, in how you act, and in mental discipline, all designed to return to the light. But get this, the path doesn't always stop at 8. For those who reach the absolute highest state of liberation, the texts actually describe a noble tenfold path. It adds 2 more steps, supreme knowledge and supreme release. It's like the graduate level course, marking a complete and final mastery. And just to show you how hands-on and practical this path is, the texts are filled with these incredibly vivid instructions. I mean, look at this quote. This is a tangible, physical technique for mental discipline. It shows this whole thing isn't about blind faith. It's about active, intentional work. Literally using your mind to tame your mind and break free from all the junk that holds you back. So, you've used the raft, you've followed the path. What is this further shore? What's the end game? What is the ultimate goal that this entire system is pointed at? The texts are actually crystal clear about the final destination. After this journey that could take, who knows how many lifetimes, what does liberation actually look like? What does it feel like? The final state is described as a return to our original nature. It's a state that is unborn, meaning it's totally outside the cycle of birth and death. It's ageless, it's immortal, and it's completely, utterly free from sorrow. It is, simply put, the complete and total end of everything we thought of as suffering. And that ultimate state, of course, has a name, nirvana. It's described as the ultimate security, the end of all this becoming, the extinguishing of the fires of greed and hatred and delusion. And most importantly, in this context, it's framed as a returning to the soul, a final reunion with our true luminous nature. This right here, this is the declaration of someone who has reached that final shore. It's a statement of absolute finality, of completion. What must be done has been done. The cycle is broken. The journey is over. The soul is finally, totally free from the possibility of any future becoming, any future suffering. So, after all that, we're left with a pretty profound question. This entire philosophy is built on this one idea, that what we experience as our self is just a reflection of something much deeper, much truer. And the question these texts leave us with is this: are we content to just live as the reflection, or do we dare to go looking for the source of the light?